We're going to look at circles today. I'm going to start off with areas and then we'll move on to some circumferences. To find the area of a circle, we have to use the formula area is equal to pi times the radius squared, which we can also write as pi r squared. We don't need the multiplication sign in there. We know that pi in this case is 3.14 multiplied by the radius squared. Now the radius is from the center point of the circle to the circumference or the outside edge of the circle. And in this case, it's 16 centimeters. So it's 16 squared. And remember, the square symbol just means you multiply the number by itself. So 3 squared is 3 times 3. 4 squared is 4 times 4. 16 squared is 16 times 16, which in this case is 256. So we know that's going to be 3.14 times 256. Let's use column multiplication to work that out. So we have 256 times 3.14. Because I have three numbers that I'm multiplying with, the 3.14, I know that I need 3 lines of working plus my addition. So 4 times 6 is 24, carry the 2. 4 times 5 is 20, add the 2, which is 22. 4 times 2 is 8, add the 2, which is 10. I then move on to the 1, it's a new number, so I must start a new line. Every time I start a new line, I start with a placeholder 0. 1 times 6 is 6, 1 times 5 is 5, and 1 times 2 is 2. I then move to the number 3. I start a new line, start with 2 zeros. 3 times 6 is 18, 3 times 5 is 15, add the 1 is 16, and 3 times 2 is 6, add the 1 is 7. Add up your columns. That gives me 803.84. Now, notice that I haven't done anything with the decimal point. Only when you get to this line here do you look at the decimal. And I can see that there are 2 numbers after the decimal point in total in the whole question. Therefore, I go back 2 spaces and I place the decimal point there. So my area will be 803.84. And the area is always given in square units, so centimeters squared. Let's look at this question. And I'm going to say let pi equal 3 in this case. So that's what we're going to use for the value of pi. We know that the area is pi r squared. And r in this case is not given because we have a diameter. Remember, the diameter goes from one side of the circumference to the other side of the circumference through the center of the circle. And the relationship between the diameter and the radius is that the diameter is twice the radius, or the radius is half the diameter. So we have a diameter of 22 millimeters. Therefore, my radius is 11 millimeters. Let's substitute our values in. Pi is 3 times the radius, which is 11 squared. And that gives me 3 times 121, which gives me 3 times 121 is 363 millimeters squared. Now it's your turn. Have a look at this question. We have a diameter of 36 meters. We're going to say let pi equal 3, and we want to find the area of that circle. You're going to use the formula, area is pi times the radius squared. Have a go, pause the video, and come back in a couple of minutes. How did you do? Let's have a look at the answer for this one. So the area will be pi, which is 3, times the radius. The radius is half the diameter, remember? So the diameter is 36, so the radius is 18. So we write 3 times 18 squared. That gives me 3 times, and 18 squared happens to be 324. And when we multiply that out, we get an area of 972 meters squared. Now let's move on to the circumference of circles. The circumference of a circle is the outside edge. It's almost like it is a perimeter, basically, of the circle, but we give it a special name. So when we talk about circles, we talk about the circumference, which is the outer edge of the circle. Okay. The circumference of a circle is given by pi times the diameter. Now, we know that the diameter is double the radius. So instead of the diameter, we could write 2 times r. Basically, it's 2 times the radius. So that is exactly the same as that. But when we write algebra, we tend to write the numbers at the start. So we would normally write this as c is equal to 2 pi r. So these are our two formulae that we can use, and they give you exactly the same thing. But you can stick with one formula if that makes it easy for you. So let's get rid of that. We'll start again with c equals pi d. And in this case, so c is the circumference. Pi happens to be 3.14, and our diameter happens to be 40. If we use column multiplication to work this out, we get 3.14 times 40. I've got two numbers on the bottom, 40, so I need two lines of working, plus my addition. 0 times 4 is 0, 0 1s are 0, 0 3s is 0. New number, new line, start with a 0, 4 4s are 16, carry the 1, 4 1s are 4, add the 1 5, 4 3s are 12. Add up my columns, get 1 2 5 6 0. I can see that there are two numbers after the decimal, 1 2, and my decimal goes there. So the circumference is equal to 125.6 centimeters. Now be careful, because they could say calculate the circumference of the circle and give your answer in meters, in which case we've now got a unit conversion. So we've come up with 125.6 centimeters, and we would need to now divide that by 100 to get an answer of 1.256 meters. So just be a little bit careful when you read the question.